Hello, I'm Jenny Fern and welcome to my library. I'm a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who's really into permaculture and wants to talk about books. So let's talk about books. Today I have a video where I read my very first Agatha Christie novel. And this is important and significant because on the 1st of January, I posted a video that got way more views than any other video I've ever posted. And it was about books entering the public domain in 2025. And in that video, I mentioned that I am not familiar with Agatha Christie's famous characters, Hercule Poirot. My mouth has such a hard time with Poirot. And I say Poirot an absolute ton in this video, and I cringe every time. So it's not just you guys, it's me too. Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. I mentioned I didn't know these characters, and that was purely honest. I mentioned that I don't know a lot of things in that video, and I did have some folks who were baffled. I understand. But I also had some haters. And being a slightly petty and my chaotic neutral self, I did decide to do an entire reading vlog based on hate comments and reading Agatha Christie. Let's go back in time to a more bitter and freshly annoyed version of myself. Boy howdy, did I post a video yesterday, and is it getting way more visibility than anything else that I've ever posted. I posted my public domain 2025 video yesterday. Sorry if you can hear Clove wandering around. She's my little dog. I have been informed through several comments that it is very strange and bizarre for me not to be familiar with some of Agatha Christie's famous characters, including Hercule Poirot. I'm so unfamiliar, I don't even know how to say it. I listened to a radio play earlier today. Anyway, I read Elephants Can Remember as performed by like BBC or something, I don't know. Genuinely don't understand what the relationship between that guy and Miss Marple is. Don't know if they're in the same books or not. But I said I didn't know either of those characters, and people came for me. I gotta read you a comment because it goes way harder than it should, in my opinion. Here's the meanest one I got. I am not sure how you can consider yourself a literary enthusiast and state that you have never heard of Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple. There were even very well TV and movie versions of these stories. Well, guess what? I haven't seen any of those. The Hercule Poirot episodes on PBS starring David Suchet, don't know who that is, are real treasures. The Miss Marple TV shows, literally never heard of it, and movies starring such renowned actresses such as Geraldine McEwen, never heard of, Margaret Rutherford, never heard of, and Angela Lansbury, the literal only name I knew in this whole thing, are also a good way to become familiar with this character. The only way I would become familiar with this character is by reading the goddamn book, because that's what this channel is. So I do have interest in reading an Agatha Christie story. And the one that I'm interested in is this one here called The Moving Finger. And I am interested in this because I did hear that that is a reference to the Rubaiyat, which I have, and that is Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. This is what we will be reading. I hope this sates you all of you Christie heads out there. As I stated in response, the reason why I'm so unfamiliar with this, and I understand that it can be very jarring that somebody does not have the same exposure to media as you do, is because I've never been interested in it. And so even like chance exposures that I've had have not been locked down in here. because I don't care. I do care about this one because I think it might be interesting because of its reference to a different piece of literature. That is the intro to this Agatha Christie reading vlog. For now, I gotta take my little doggie outside because she wants to go. Funnily enough, I think this is actually the perfect story for me to read for this because, at least so far, it is about somebody sending mean letters to people. And so I have a quote. "The letters are sent indiscriminately and serve the purpose of working off some frustration in the writer's mind. As I say, it's definitely pathological." That's very fun. I would also like to note 2 other lines because the voice of this story is very humorous. "Exactly," I said. "If you lived here, you would have just a little powder to take the shine off the nose, and you would almost certainly be wearing all your eyebrows instead of only a quarter of them." Very catty. "I could, of course, have set light to it with a match and slowly watched it burn. Or watched it slowly burn." I love that. I'm having a good time so far. And again, the plot thus far could not be more apt to the current situation I find myself in. I will be heading to bed shortly, but I wanted to give an update that I finished the first chapter of The Moving Finger. I'm enjoying it so far. I really enjoy the voice that it's told in. There is one aspect about this. I feel like I have to pay attention to everything. Especially every person who's introduced and like what they talk about. I feel like I have to pay attention to all of that. And so I did have to reread some sections because I worked a full day today and I'm feeling a little tired. Yeah, it's interesting for me. I'm not, as I've clearly stated, I'm not a big mystery genre person. And so it's really a wholly new experience for me having to pay attention so much to this type of stuff. Good morning. It is Saturday. I did try to read a little bit of The Moving Finger last night. I was too tired, so I've decided to tackle it with my morning brain, and I read the second chapter. So now I think I will try to read chapter 3 while I eat my breakfast. It's very apt, the plot of this story, again, having these anonymous, mean letters terrorizing the townsfolk. It just seems very timely. I've gotten 2 mean-spirited comments, which is not that many, and I'm very grateful that most of you are incredibly nice. And even those who we don't like particularly align with our reading tastes, many of you have also been very, very kind as well. But I did get a comment that I think is supposed to be mean. It's like written in a slam poetry style. I don't know if that's on purpose. It's about my voice and also how in the beginning of the public domain video that I posted, which has gotten so many more views than my other videos, I say last year a few times at the beginning because I'm talking about the public domain books that I read last year from the video that I posted last year. I feel like it's pertinent and maybe of interest to some people, but to this this person named Nancy, I believe, it was not pertinent and it was grating in some way. I can understand not enjoying somebody's voice. That's fine, but you can just go away. I'm not holding you hostage. It says, "You just love last year, your voice, and then last year. Babble on, fractured voiceover, crackling." Again, not really sure what you're trying to get at, but I think you're saying that you found my introduction annoying and my voice annoying. I can understand. I don't have the most pleasant tone to my voice, which I've known my whole life. My mom sounds basically the same way. My sister sounds the same way. In that way, I think it's beautiful because it is who I am. It's genetics, it's upbringing, and that's a part of me. So can't hate it too much myself. But for others, you don't have to stay. You can just go. And I'd be happy for you too. I think it is actually excellent timing for me to be reading this piece. I look a little crazy, but it is because it is the morning and I haven't put myself together. But I have been reading The Moving Finger, and I've just reached chapter 7. I am now thoroughly hooked into this story. I definitely want to know what will happen. I can understand why people can really get hooked on this genre, because you have this like interactivity with the piece where you, just by the nature of what you're trying to do, trying to catch all of these clues, you're really engaged with the work, and then you do get invested in how things will end up because you want to know if you're right. So I can really understand like the addictive quality that mystery stories have with people. I'm finding the writing good, and if I were still doing my vocabulary blog, I'd have at least 5 words that I am not familiar with. I had to look up one. Oh, I can't remember what the word was, but it basically meant that somebody had like a nasally voice because it was some sort of medical condition. We have finally met Miss Marple, so I now get introduced to this beloved character. To be perfectly honest, I don't even know what she's really doing there. I don't really know anything about her, but she seems like a fine person to be around. The line on the page where Miss Marple is introduced was this one. She seemed now principally concerned with the destruction of white butterflies so as to preserve cauliflower and cabbage plants. Anybody who knows me or has watched for a while knows that I am so interested in insects and garden insects, and so I loved the mention of the cabbage white. And then this is a much longer line, but it does relate to some of the things that I've been feeling about the 2 needlessly mean comments that I received. This I could relate to. But don't you realize, can't you feel, use your imagination, think how desperately, violently unhappy anyone must be to sit down and write those things. How lonely, how cut off from humankind. Poisoned through and through with a dark stream of poison that finds its outlet in this way. But that black inward unhappiness, like a septic arm physically, all black and swollen, if you could cut it and let the poison out, it would flow away harmlessly. Yes, poor soul, poor soul. Why do people feel the need to just be mean? Especially anonymously and without the repercussion of like a face-to-face like disapproving glance or whatever. The feelings of power that those people have. And anyway, I've been thinking a lot about it. I just really haven't had the experience of like being the subject of that, considering how incredibly small and close the comments have been on my channel until now. I feel like I can really relate and connect to the characters in this book. I'm really grateful to everybody who was like, bruh, you gotta read Agatha Christie. And especially everybody who said it in a neutral to positive way. I'm thoroughly not grateful for the one comment that was rude. It is a beautifully sunny day. It is gorgeous out, not even a mist, no fog. I am going to prune my fruit trees. I'm back inside from pruning. That was a lot of work, and I have so many more trees to address. I have all of the trees in the front yard. I'm so excited to have more fruit from my trees this year. I've grown many of my trees from seeds. I've had fruit from both of my peaches, because those are very fast growing, from one of my plums. I think that's it for the seed grown trees. So this is Al, right? Al is at least partly a Maine Coon, and my first cat, Gordon, was also a Maine Coon. He died last year, but when he was a adolescent cat, he got into so much trouble and hijinks, and Al is now in that era where he's going into the trash can. He will not stop taking stuff out of the recycling bin. He goes up and steals my mail, and he has so many things to do. He has cats to play with, he has toys to play with, but you know, it's just that curiosity that gets to them, where they want to do everything that they want to do. So I thought I would read in this little rocking chair over here. Be a little cozy lady for a little bit before I go back out and prune some more. I have just been snuggled up on the couch with my cat Louie. He is still asleep. He sleeps all day. That's all he does. I just finished reading The Moving Finger. I really enjoyed this story a lot. I thought it was such a humorous story. It's got a wonderful voice to it. I have now finished my first, baby's first, Agatha Christie. That ticks off one of the 5 in this bind up. The others in here are The Secret Adversary, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, The Boomerang Clue, and Death Comes as the End. So let me know in the comments, if you've read these, which one I should pick up next. I have no complaints. I had a wonderful time, and I did not guess the appropriate person, which I didn't really expect that I would. It was fun to play along with a story, to have a little puzzle to mull about in the brain. So now I'd like to go pick out the inspiration for the title and read that. I'm not actually sure how I'm going to find the appropriate quatrain. I found it. It is quatrain 51. So here is quatrain 50, just for a little context. The ball, no question, makes of eyes and nose. And that's like I and like no, not eyes and nose. The ball, no question, makes of eyes and nose, but right or left, as strikes the player goes. And he that tossed thee down into the field, he knows about it. He knows, he knows. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on, nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. And that inverted bowl we call the sky, whereunder crawling cooped we live and die, lift not thy hands for it to help, for it rolls impotently as thou or I. I guess it's impotently, huh? I don't know anything about what this is actually about, and now I'm thinking that this might be my next read. I have decided to start reading the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. I have a few lines to read out. This book that I have is from 1937. Translation is the Edward Fitzgerald translation. Don't really know anything about it. There's a whole introduction that I did not read. He died within the first quarter of our 12th century. So yes, quite old. And I did just get myself a tiny little allotment of wine because there's so much wine imagery. And this delightful herb, whose tender green fledges the river's lip on which we lean, Ah, lean upon it lightly, for who knows, from what once lovely lip it springs unseen. We get a little existential in here. Ah, make the most of what we yet may spend, before we too into the dust descend. Dust into dust, and under dust to lie. Sans wine, sans song, sans singer, and sans end. So far I'm really enjoying it. Shockingly to me, because if you see this book, it, you know, is a full-length book. You think, oh, this will be the length of a book. This isn't just what one would expect. It is the first edition of the translation, the second edition of the translation, the 5th edition, and variations in the 3rd edition. So this is multiple editions of different, not even different translations, the same translation. I ended up reading the 1st edition of the translation, and it was over before I even realized. I did have a better sense of the context of the moving finger line when I read it now. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on, nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. So that being like fate or time, life happens. Nothing you can do can undo that. I feel like it's a fairly fitting title to the story. I'm not sure if I really understood the second portion of this, which was about, there's like some clay pots, and I think I would have to reread this. I finally read this. I had no idea how short it would be. I don't even know what else to say. I had a wonderful time. I read 2 wonderful pieces of literature. I think I will, in fact, be reading more Agatha Christie in my future. Thank you. Thank you all for letting me know that I should do that. I also should say thank you for all of the new subscribers, all of the wonderful comments, and everybody who's just been so generous with their kind words, with their information. I have to say, overwhelmingly, I'm feeling very wonderful, beautiful, positive feelings. I know I did have some emphasis in this video on the 2 hate comments that I received. Genuinely, I couldn't have read a more fitting piece. I just had so many thoughts about why people choose to be mean. I had a lot of things to work through because of that overall discussion and that whole topic. There's a lot to get into there without, you know, having it all be about me and my feelings and all that. Really just the idea that people do this and experiencing that people do that was a new experience for me. I hope you all enjoyed this. If you did, please consider sharing it with a friend who you think would also enjoy it. Consider liking and subscribing, and I will be back again soon. The moment I'm recording this video, we hit 1,000 subscribers today. That baffles my mind. Hello and welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm a little afraid of disappointing you all. C'est la vie. If you don't like me, you can leave.